The coffee shop was packed that Tuesday morning, voices overlapping in a symphony of orders and greetings. The hiss of the espresso machine cutting through the chatter like a sharp blade. But in the center of that noise stood a woman whose world was completely silent. Her name was Maya, and as she stood at the counter, her hands moving in careful, deliberate signs, the barista stared at her with growing frustration, shaking his head. Maya's face flushed with embarrassment as people behind her began to shift impatiently, checking their phones, glancing at their watches. She tried again, pointing at the menu, her fingers spelling out letters in the air. But the young man behind the register only threw his hands up in defeat. "I'm sorry, I just don't understand," he said loudly, as if volume could bridge the gap between them. Maya's shoulders slumped. She had been here before, in this exact moment of helplessness, where the simple act of ordering coffee became a reminder that the world wasn't built for people like her. Then something extraordinary happened. A hand gently touched her shoulder, and when she turned, she saw a man with kind eyes and a soft smile. His hands began to move, forming the fluid, expressive shapes of American Sign Language. "What would you like to order?" he signed, his movements graceful and confident. Maya's eyes widened, filling with tears she didn't know she'd been holding back. For the first time that morning, someone saw her. Not her disability, not her struggle, but her. If you believe in the power of kindness. In moments that restore our faith in humanity, please take a second to like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear this story, and subscribe to Kindness Stories. Your support helps us share more stories that matter. Stories that remind us we're never truly alone. The man's name was Daniel, a single father of two who had learned sign language years ago for reasons that would later break Maya's heart and put it back together again. He turned to the confused barista and calmly translated Maya's order, a medium caramel latte with oat milk, light on the caramel. The barista nodded, relieved, and hurried to make the drink. Daniel turned back to Maya, his hands moving again. "I'm Daniel," he signed. "Nice to meet you." Maya signed back her name, her hands trembling slightly, still processing the kindness of this stranger who had appeared exactly when she needed him most. "Thank you," she signed, the gesture simple but weighted with a gratitude that went far beyond a coffee order. Daniel smiled and waved it off, as if what he'd done was nothing special, just common decency. But to Maya, it was everything. For the past 3 years, since she had lost her hearing in a car accident that had also taken her husband, Maya had felt increasingly invisible in a hearing world. She had learned to navigate life through text messages, written notes, and lip reading when lighting was good and people spoke slowly. But spontaneous interactions, the casual exchanges that made up the fabric of daily life, had become minefields of misunderstanding and isolation. Ordering coffee shouldn't be hard, she often thought, but it was. Asking for directions, making a doctor's appointment, even greeting a neighbor, all of it required extra steps, extra courage, and often ended in frustration for everyone involved. When Maya's drink was ready, she took it with a grateful nod and turned to leave, but Daniel signed to her again. "Do you have a minute to sit?" Maya hesitated, then nodded. They found a small table near the window, away from the crowd, where the morning light fell in soft golden patterns across the worn wood. Daniel pulled out his phone and began typing, showing her the screen when he finished. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." That looked stressful. Maya smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes for the first time in what felt like months. She typed back on her own phone. It always is. You have no idea what your kindness just meant to me. Daniel read her words and nodded, understanding flickering across his features. Then he began to sign again, and Maya realized he was telling her a story. His daughter, Emma, had been born deaf. For the first years of her life, Daniel and his late wife had immersed themselves in the deaf community, learning ASL, connecting with other parents, and building a world where Emma would never feel less than because of her hearing. They had attended deaf events, taken classes, and made sign language the primary language of their home. His wife, Sarah, had been passionate about advocacy, about breaking down barriers and creating spaces where deaf and hearing people could communicate as equals. Then, when Emma was 5, Sarah had died suddenly from an aneurysm, leaving Daniel to raise both Emma and their hearing son, Marcus. Alone, Maya's eyes filled with tears as she watched Daniel's hands move through this painful history. She could see the grief still etched in the lines around his eyes, but also the determination, the love that had kept him going. Emma is 10 now, he signed. She's amazing, strong, and so much like her mother. Marcus learned to sign for his sister, and now he interprets for her at school sometimes when the official interpreter is sick. They're incredibly close. Maya wiped her tears and signed back, "Your wife would be so proud of the father you are." Daniel's composure cracked for just a moment, his eyes glistening, and he nodded. "I hope so. I try every day to honor her memory by making sure Emma knows she belongs in this world exactly as she is." They talked for over an hour, or rather, they signed and typed, sharing stories of loss and resilience, of the small battles that people who could hear never had to fight. Maya told him about her husband, about how she'd been a piano teacher before the accident, and how silent her life had become in more ways than one. She told him about the friends who had drifted away, uncomfortable with the effort it took to communicate, about family members who talked about her instead of to her, assuming she couldn't understand or contribute. She told him about the loneliness that had settled into her bones like winter cold, making even her own home feel empty. And Daniel listened listened, his eyes never leaving her hands, his expression full of empathy and understanding. When Maya finally checked the time and realized she'd stayed far longer than she intended. She felt something she hadn't felt in years, connection. Daniel signed, "Would you like to meet Emma? I think you two would really get along, and honestly, she could use more deaf role models in her life." Maya's heart swelled. She signed back, "I would love that more than you know." They exchanged numbers, and before Maya left, Daniel signed one more thing. "You're not invisible." Maya, not anymore. Over the following weeks, Maya's life began to change in ways she couldn't have imagined that morning in the coffee shop. She met Emma, a bright, funny girl with her father's kind eyes and a confidence that took Maya's breath away. Emma didn't see her deafness as a limitation, but as simply part of who she was, and being around her was like medicine for Maya's wounded spirit. Daniel invited Maya to a deaf community event, and for the first time since her accident, Maya found herself in a room full of people who communicated the way she did, where she wasn't the odd one out, where she didn't have to explain or apologize or feel like a burden. She met other deaf adults, learned about resources she hadn't known existed, and slowly began to rebuild the sense of belonging she thought she'd lost forever. But more than that, she found friendship with Daniel, a deep, genuine connection built on understanding and shared experience. He introduced her to Sarah's favorite dephoned businesses, to advocacy groups working to make the world more accessible, to opportunities to teach music to deaf children using vibrations and visual aids. Maya began to feel like herself again, like she had purpose and community and a future worth imagining. And Daniel, who had been so focused on being strong for his children that he'd forgotten to grieve properly, found in Maya someone who understood his loss without him having to explain it. Someone who saw past his role as a father and advocate to the man beneath who was still healing, still finding his way. 6 months after that morning in the coffee shop, Maya stood in front of a classroom of deaf children, teaching them about rhythm and vibration, showing them how music could be felt even when it couldn't be heard. Daniel and Emma sat in the back row, watching with pride. After the class, Emma signed to Maya, "You're my hero." Maya knelt down to the girl's level, her eyes bright with tears, and signed back, "No, sweetheart, you and your dad are mine." Asterisk, if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that a single act of kindness can change someone's entire world, please don't leave without hitting that like button. Share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Stories so you never miss these moments that prove humanity is still beautiful. Your engagement truly matters. It helps these stories reach the people who need them most. Asterisk, the world hadn't changed. Not really. Coffee shops were still noisy, and most people still didn't know sign language. But Maya's world had transformed completely. She had found her voice again, not through sound but through hands and hearts, and the reminder that she was never meant to navigate this journey alone. And it all started because a single dad saw a struggling woman and chose to bridge the gap, to offer his hands in translation and his heart in friendship. Asterisk, before we end, drop a comment below telling us about a time someone's unexpected kindness changed your day or your life. We read every single one, and your stories inspire us to keep sharing more. Asterisk, sometimes the most profound changes in our lives don't come from grand gestures or dramatic interventions. Sometimes they come from a simple choice someone makes in a crowded coffee shop on an ordinary Tuesday morning, the choice to see someone, to help someone, to remind them that they matter. Daniel didn't think he was doing anything heroic that day. He was just being the person his late wife had taught him to be, honoring her memory by making sure people like their daughter never felt invisible. But to Maya, he was everything. He was proof that kindness still existed, that people still cared, that her silence didn't make her any less worthy of connection and community. And in helping Maya find her way back to herself, Daniel found something too, a reminder that healing often comes when we reach out to heal others, that in bridging gaps for someone else, we build bridges back to our own hearts. That morning in the coffee shop wasn't just about a woman ordering coffee or a man who knew sign language. It was about two wounded souls finding each other in the chaos, about compassion cutting through noise and isolation, about the beautiful, unexpected ways we save each other when we choose to see, to care, to act. Maya never felt invisible again because someone took the time to truly see her, and that made all the difference.